you're developing those habits and behaviors and those things, you know what you are. If you're waking up every day at 4 in the morning, you don't have to post it on your Instagram story to feel significant. What is the point of posting it on your Snapchat story?
Look at it's why. Because immediately
exactly,
what made me think about is, I don't know if you've heard of the guy Jocko Willing.
Yep.
He's a Navy SEAL. He posts every single day on his Instagram. Every single day. He posts a picture of his watch at 4:30 in the morning every single time he wakes up. So the reason why he's posting it is not because he wants you to know that he's up at 4:30 in the morning. The reason why he's posting it is because he wants you to know that it's possible. The post is there to serve you. It's there to inspire you. It's there to remind you that you can be better. You can be doing more. The reason why he's posting it is not because he wants you to know he's up at 4:30 in the morning. The reason he's posting it is for you, not for himself. With that said, most people use that as an excuse of like, no, I'm not posting it for me. I'm not posting it for me. Whatever you're doing, if you want to feel better, you need to analyze why you're saying the things you're saying and why you're doing the things that you're doing. Because if you feel the need to post it on Snapchat, then you're doing it for ego, unless your reason is to serve others.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 39th episode of the Conscious Cast. I'm your host, Cal, along with my other boy, Jason Scalora. So today we are picking up right where we left off, and we're going to get right to it. So my man, Jay, open her up.
So last time on episode 38, if you didn't watch episode 38, please go and watch episode 38.
It was a banger.
Of the Conscious Cast.
Absolute banger.
It was phenomenal. But at the end, we kind of touched on something where Cal and I were talking afterwards, and we were like, oh shit, we should really elaborate on that. Because the second we started talking about it, we were like, oh my God, we could have gone for hours.
Yeah.
But basically I don't even know how we got there, but what we started talking about was essentially how I said it was, I think it's the biggest problem in today's society, which is people getting significance for their problems, right? In other words, if somebody has a problem, what they'll do is they'll go to their friends or their family or their support group or whatever, and then they'll complain about their problems or they'll vent about their problems. And then in turn, they get attention for the problems, right? If you're a good friend, you'll be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." You'll have some empathy, you'll have some compassion for them. You'll talk to them. You'll be kind to them. You'll give them the support that they want. But what people don't realize is that you're actually hurting that person a lot of the time, right? Yes, if something just happened and the wound is fresh and it's open, a lot of times you need to vent and get it out. But most people use that as an excuse to just continue to complain about it. So I'm on a rant, but essentially what I'm getting at is like people fall into the trap all the time of just complaining about their problems, and then they get attention for those problems. So then your brain goes, okay, well, every time we have a problem, we get attention for it and we feel good, right? And you get the dopamine release. You get all these good neurochemicals that are flowing through your brain every time your brain has a problem. So your brain's like, okay, problem equals feeling good. Oh my gosh, again, problem equals feeling good. Problem equals feeling good. So every time you have a problem, you're just consistently getting reinforced for having that problem. So then your brain says, this is fucking great. Let's just have a ton of problems. Because your brain doesn't know objectively that problems aren't good. It just knows what makes you feel good, right? Mm-hmm. And although it's sick and twisted, so many people fall into that trap.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah, and I think it's, in the short term, it feels really good, right? But in the long term, it feels like, well, that problem's not getting fixed anytime soon. And then you have like a whole list of problems. And I think interestingly too, like you said, like the body feels good based on, creating problems and getting attention for those problems. And it's like once again, we touched on before, people that feel insignificant feel less than, right? They feel like they're in a state of lack, right? And so with creating problems, they kind of gain that sense of, I guess you could say, wholeness or completeness back in their life, which is really interesting. But besides the point, they create those problems in order to feel enough to be involved in a conversation, right? To bring up something interesting into a conversation, right?
Because they do it to meet a need. Like everybody has the need to feel unique. Everybody has the need to feel special. Everybody has it. We all have the need. How you go about it is where we're different, right? And so, like, for example, I'm not going to name their name. They're probably not watching the podcast anyways, ironically. But if... you know this person too. Yeah. Anyways, this particular girl, literally,
like them.
It was literally, it was probably not exaggerating, 2 or 3 times every week, like almost every other day. She would be coming down she would come downstairs and just be crying every other day. And like she would just be talking about her problems and she'd just be bawling her eyes out. And then every single time, all of our friends would just be like, oh, like most of the time she'd come downstairs talking about her ex-boyfriend or whatever and how like he's such a dick and like she's so much better than him, like yada yada yada, right? She's crying about whatever the fuck's going on. And you know, they would always just be like, yeah, he's such a dick, like he's the worst, and like just completely aside with her, and like I said, reinforce that problem. But what you don't understand, right? Because if you're somebody's friend and they come to you consistently and they just complain all the time, and what you think being a good friend means is to console them, is to give them the comfort that they're looking for, to be those ears that they can vent to, right? And on the surface, that makes sense. But if you're their real friend, you need to understand something. What they need long-term and what they want in that present moment are two very different things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you give them attention for complaining about their problems, they're never going to get rid of those problems. Never. Yeah. Because, like I said, they're going to attach feeling good to having problems, because every time they have a problem, they get attention for it and they feel good. So their brain says, okay, problems equals feeling good. And if you're that friend and you really want the best for them, you need to say, listen, I understand things are wrong. I understand you got fucked over in X, Y, and Z. I get it. And I feel for you and I'm sorry, but you need to stop complaining about the problem. After you acknowledge it, after you fully accept what's happened, all you need to focus on is how you're going to get better. And if you want to talk to me and you want advice on how to get better, I'm here for you. But I'm not going to be the ears to complain to, because I'm not going to support you letting your brain attach feeling good to your problems, because I want you to get over your problems. I want you to be happy. I want you to actually live a good life. I don't want you to come downstairs crying every day because you want attention for your problems. And most of those people don't even know that that's what's going on. They just know that they feel good when they complain. And they won't admit it. They'd be like, what? You think I actually want these problems? I don't want these problems. Like, yes, you do. And I've been there. Like, I know what it's like. Yeah. So I understand what it's like to be on the other side. And at the time, I would have never admitted that. But if you're somebody's real friend, that means you want the best for the best part of that person. And if you want the best for the best part of that person, you're not going to continually be the ears that absorb all of their complaints and allow them to feel good every single time they complain about a problem. You're going to tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And a lot of times that means they're going to be like, well, what the fuck? You always just listen. It's like, yeah, but now I'm done. Because first of all, it's annoying, you know, at a certain point. It's like you're just listening to someone complain over and over again. But secondly, it's like, you're bringing yourself down because you're not going to want to get over the problem.
Yeah, and interestingly, like when you said that, I was thinking to myself, like very like how you said you've been in that spot before, like where you created problems, like just to, like not necessarily gain attention, but to like feel significance, you know. And
gain attention
it's like,
too,
dude,
yeah.
Absolutely, like I same thing. Like I'll bring this up in and like this is not easy for me to do. I've like never told anybody about this, but yeah. I remember like my cat died like. A long time ago, like 5-6 years ago. And, you know, I loved him very much, but I posted on Instagram, not because I really cared about my cat, but because I wanted the attention of others. I wanted that sympathy. Bro. I wanted that empathy, right? 100%. I wanted to feel good. I used my cat, my dead cat, as a means to an end. And Scooter, if you're in heaven right now, I fucking love you. Okay, I'm sorry. That was his name, Scooter. Yeah. Dope fucking cat, obese cat. Probably that's why he died. But like,
holy shit.
But yeah, man, it's like
that's funny as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, dude, he was a fucking dope ass cat. Yeah, he's a big boy. But yeah, like I used him. Like I remember, like I was like typing it up, you know, I was writing it, and like most of the stuff was authentic, but
of course,
I never consciously admitted that I was using him to gain that attention, to gain that empathy. Yeah. I wanted those comments. It's the same. It parallels to very similarly, maybe not to the same extent, of posting on your Snapchat story of you crying. That's
exactly
right?
what I was thinking about. Like, it's exactly what I was thinking about.
It's a parallel example with that. And if you're doing that, right, you're utilizing maybe someone or your issue or a problem as a means to an end in order to get short-term attention.
Exactly. And listen, I'm not judging. You know what I mean? I'm not coming from a place where I think you're a fucking idiot. Stop crying on your Snapchat story. What I'm saying is, listen, if you're the type of person that cries and posts videos of you crying or pictures of you crying on your Snapchat story or things of the like, then what you need to understand is why you're doing it. You're not doing it because you need to vent. You're doing it because you want the significance, you want the good feelings that come along with the problems that you have. Because you have the problem, you get attention and consoling and comfort and love and connection for the problem. And then your brain attaches that problem to feeling good. It's the same thing over and over and over again. And if you're the type of person that's posting your problems on your Snapchat story or on your Instagram story, or you're posting your dead cat on your Instagram or whatever the hell you're doing, you need to ask yourself why. You need to figure that out. Because if you continue to reinforce that wiring in your brain, you're never going to let go of your problems. You'll never let go of them. And when you stop, you're going to feel this serious disconnect, right? Because, for example, for me, when I stopped, I was the biggest fucking complainer. Once I stopped complaining and stopped bitching about everything and every little thing that happened to me, there was a serious feeling of the lack of significance I was feeling in my life. How I fixed that, well, at the time was not exactly good, but how I fixed that was by working on myself, by starting to exercise, starting to read, starting to have my room clean, right? That's what made me feel significant, because I knew most of the other students aren't doing that, and that's what still makes me feel significant today. Is it a bit of ego? Yeah, but at the same time, that's a positive way of meeting that need. Yep. But if you're going to continue to reinforce those brain pathways that are telling you that get a problem, feel good for it, and then now problems equals feeling good, then you're never going to let go of your problems. And listen, if you don't want to let go of your problems, say la vie.
Hang on to them.
Go for it. Fuck it. You know what I mean? I'm not telling you what you should or shouldn't do. Yeah. All I'm telling you is, if you actually want to get over your problems, you really need to be super, super, super aware of what you're doing. Yeah. Because I see so many private stories and people posting on Instagram and people posting on TikTok, and all you want is significance, and that's fine. But if you want to get over your problems, all you're doing is the exact opposite by doing things like that.
On the flip side of people highlighting their problems, people highlight their what they're doing well with, right? What they're doing good with, right? For instance, you take grad photos on Instagram. People list all their achievements. I made Dean's List, President's List, fucking taken these classes in this amount of time, graduated in 2 years or whatever. Just all that type of stuff. And I'm proud of them, right? Good for you, right? You achieved all those things, but deep down inside, they want to show off.
Well, it's
others.
Dude, do you think that anybody who's truly self-confident, truly self-confident, feels the need to post that they made Dean's List on Instagram?
Probably not.
The answer is no. Yeah. And there's a reason why. Because ego shows up in that way.
Yeah.
And the ego's only there because it wants to prove to the world or prove to whoever's looking at your post that you're better than you actually are, because you don't feel adequate. And in the same sense, it shows up in the other way, where if you're crying on your Snapchat story, your ego is showing up of, well, throw me a pity party. Give me compassion, love, and connection for my problems, and let me feel significant for my problems. Yeah. But both ways, to either extreme, whether it's Dean's List or your cat died, your ego is the reason why you're posting it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you want that. You want people to know about how well you're doing, right? And if people don't know it, then it might not exist, right? Because if people don't know it, I guess according to you, if people don't see how well you're doing and see all your achievements and see X, Y, and Z, then I guess you feel like nothing. But those who feel like nothing, and like you touched on before, those who don't need to highlight their achievements are the biggest achievers, right? Mm-hmm. They don't need to highlight every single thing. I know this guy on Instagram, I've told you about him. He's the trucker spiritual guy, right? Yeah. And he's highlighting how much money he's making. He's highlighting how he's taking his mom out to dinner, and he's a very smart dude, and he's very influential, I'd say. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, he's he notes every little thing he does. He'll be working out, he notes that, right? On his Instagram story. And it's once again, before, it's I deep down inside me, I see that ego part within him. That's what I'm getting from watching that story, right? Or seeing someone else's achievements. It's coming from a place where they want to be seen, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a natural thing we all want.
Of course.
And so how do you balance that, right? Because maybe not take social media to the side, right? Maybe in a real life matter, right? Where someone's asking you about your life, right? And rather than just blurting off like a stupid amount of like, I'm part of this club. I'm a part of this, you know, like all your different types of things. Like, how do you kind of balance like showing who you are, right, without developing too much ego, if that makes sense?
Well, I mean, it all comes down to a matter of why you're saying what you're saying.
Yeah. So it's like someone asked you about it, you know, like, or
Because
like,
it's like,
or who you are, you know?
well, so for example, like my TikTok page,
Yeah.
right? That's like the biggest thing that I can use for my ego currently, right? And when I think about it, like sometimes, like not even, it's a bad way of putting it. When I think about it, like there's a lot of times where it can come up where people will ask me about what I do, and like content creation is something I love to do.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not coming from an egoic place. If that leads down to the root of talking about my TikTok, it does.
Yep.
But the reason why I'm saying it is not to tell you I have over 240,000 followers or whatever the fuck, right? It's not, there's no ego there. It's like, I want to change the fucking world.
Yeah.
And the way I want to do it is through mindset and mental health and spirituality and physical health and all these areas of life that matter. And I want to spread awareness in it. And there's no ego in that. Like there's not. And like, you can feel it when you talk about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? But if you can feel yourself when you're talking, feeling that desire to get a reaction out of someone, that's when you know that it's coming from a bad place, right? So it doesn't really matter what you're saying. It matters how you feel when you say it. What's your outcome by saying that? What's your goal here by saying that? You know what I mean? Because you could say that you're on a D1 soccer team, but if you're just talking about it because you're super passionate about soccer and it's not coming from, you just want them to know you're a D1 soccer player because you feel inadequate. So your ego's like, let them know you're playing Division 1 so that you feel cool. So that people can be like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like you're such a good athlete. Yeah,
you.
wow. You know,
Yeah.
like if that's why you're saying it, then that's obviously one end of the coin. Right. But there's also going to be people that can talk about the fact that they're a Division 1 soccer player. And the reason why they're saying it is not because it's coming from an ego. Yeah. Right. So so to answer your question, I think you really have to analyze why you're saying what you're saying. How does it feel when you're saying certain things? And then see, okay, it doesn't exactly feel pure when I'm saying that. I don't feel real and authentic when I'm saying that. Right? So like for me, if I'm talking about my TikTok page and I'm like, oh, like say something about the amount of followers I have, like then I know like I'm talking about this for the wrong reasons. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so catch yourself, analyze yourself, how you're feeling when you're saying certain things, and then you will know whether or not it's coming from a place of ego or not.
Yeah, and a perfect example of one time, like remember the volleyball event we had?
Yeah.
Right. So on our team, we had like these two residents and they had a friend that was like played Division 3 volleyball or whatever. Yeah. And he went to Central, but he wasn't like a part of Sheridan. He kept on trying to coach us and like tell us what to do, and like no one was listening to him. And so he began to get frustrated. He was like, oh man. And so pretty much as time went on, like the residents that were friends with him were like, dude, he played Division 3 volleyball, bro. We should listen to him. And he's like, he even said himself, he was like, dude, I played Division 3 volleyball. You guys should be listening to me. Like, and no one was listening to him, right? It only made them more frustrated. He's like, well, and every time I'd like chime out with like a tip, he's like, well, you know, when I played back at whatever college, we didn't do that. So, you know, I don't think we should, you know, like he just kept on saying it and saying it and saying it. I'm like, dude. This guy wants people to know so bad. Like he wants to control. He wants control so much, right? And he wants people to fit what he wants to do, right? And so,
real quick, you know what it made me think? It made me think about it like this. It's like he wanted the team to win so that he can look good when the team wins. He didn't want the team to win so that they can win.
Yeah.
But when you come from a place where you want the team to win because you want the team to win, and you don't give a fuck how it happens, you just want them to win, even if you get no recognition for it, that's when you get the most recognition for it.
Yeah, facts. And like selflessness, you know?
Right.
It's really like, you look at the Spurs, you know, like they're like a Tony Parker, right? Yeah. Yeah, I mean like all these types of guys. I mean, Ginobili or whatever. God, it's been so long since I've been in the league. But yeah, these guys were selfless. Like they put themselves to the side, right? And like didn't matter about necessarily propping themselves up on a, you know, self-image, right? Like this is my team. No, this is our team, you know? Right. And it's like when someone takes control over the team and is like, this is my team, right? Rather than we're all equal, right? You start to have that slanted type of team, and that's what leads to disimbalances, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and that it relates back to, immediately makes me think about content creation, right?
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I think I've said this in a podcast a couple episodes ago, but so a lot of people come up to me, for example, and they'll know that I have a lot of followers on TikTok or whatever, and they'll be like, how do I get TikTok famous, right? And so immediately I'm like, listen, like, if you want to be TikTok famous, I can tell you how to get famous on TikTok. It's not a hard equation.
Yeah.
Here it is. Figure out what you're good at. Post 4 times a day, every single day.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
Congratulations. You'll be famous on TikTok. Right. But the thing is like, you're not going to get views. This is the thing that I think it's just so ironic, is that you're not going to get views when you're trying to get views. You're going to get views when you're trying to serve others. When it comes from a place of ego, you're not going to get what you want. Yes, there are anomalies. Yes, there's people that can shake their ass on TikTok because they want to get views and then get views, like, ta-da, like whatever. But for the most part, in most cases, if you're coming from a place of ego and not to serve others, you're not going to get what you want, no matter what it is, whether it's views or making a volleyball team win, whatever it is. If you come from a place of ego, you're not going to get what you want. And the irony of it is that when you're finally coming from a place of service and not a place of selflessness, that's when what you didn't care about getting comes to you rather than you trying to go to it. It's like a game of chase, right? And I always give this analogy. It's like, like life works in the same way of like when guys chasing girls. You know what I mean? Like you want the girl, so you talk to her all day, you try and Snapchat her all day, you try and compliment her, buy her flowers, whatever, and then she doesn't want you. She wants somebody else, right? And you're like, fuck it, whatever. And then you give up on it. And you're like, whatever. She doesn't want me, whatever. But then what happens the second you stop talking to her? Now she's after you, right? The second you gave it up and stopped it acting in a way where you wanted her, she comes to you, right? But it works the same way in life. If you want, like for me, in the beginning when I first started TikTok, a lot of things I was doing were just for views, and I wasn't getting views. Like it was just doing things to like build my brand, right? It wasn't to serve others. It wasn't to improve the mental health and well-being of other people. It was to build my brand. But once I started saying, I don't give a fuck what I need to post. It doesn't always need to be me. It doesn't always need to be funnel it down to my account or whatever. It's not all just marketing. I'm here to serve. And once I decided to change my outlook on and my outcome on how I was using my content and the content that I was posting, everything changed. Because then I was here to serve others, and I wasn't trying to get views anymore. But the irony of it is that's when the views came.
Dang. Yeah, it developed into a byproduct, right? You turn from your main goal of getting views, you change that into serving others. And like I think that is just such a more like authentic way to really just embody like any type of career, job, avenue, passion that you're going in. Like don't think about it as like if you're pursuing a career just to get attention from others, just to like serve your or meet the expectations of your parents, right? You know, you're not gonna develop that like genuine passion for it, right? And if you do develop into like something that you want to do, right, and your genuine passion, something as a byproduct will be possibly over time as you like dive into that, right? Maybe not at first your parents or your friends or people around you won't be necessarily happy with what you're doing, but over time they'll see the progression and they'll be like, wow, I was wrong about that person, right? And they ended up changing their minds, right? And so it's really about that. What is your ultimate goal, right? Is that ultimate goal in alignment with your authentic self, right? And change how you're operating currently, right? You might be doing the same thing, right? But you got to change the reasons why you're doing it, right? And so if you change the reasons why you're doing it, maybe not necessarily like you might be posting different types of TikTok, right? Rather than just like, oh, this is great, this will get so many views, right?
No,
so
but I get what you mean.
Yeah. So maybe you would change up, but you're still doing the same thing, but the underlying fuel that's making you post and motivated is more authentic in alignment with who you are rather than based on ego.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times when you do get to that point where you realize whatever you're doing it out of ego, you're doing it to try and meet a need of significance or whatever. Like it's not something that's you're trying to serve the betterment of the world. Once you realize that, a lot of times you're going to just stop doing what you're doing and you're going to change up whatever path you were on. For me, it was, I don't know. The reason why I said it is because I think for me, it's a far and few case of like, I think typically, in most cases, it's not, if you're on TikTok, you're going to stop posting on TikTok once you realize that like what you're trying to do is get views rather than trying to make people's lives better, right? But my goal was to make people's lives better throughout the entire experience. I just wasn't aligned with it in the beginning, if that makes sense.
I gotcha. And yeah, I think that's like where a lot of people go wrong, It's like they try and get into something and like what, like 2-3 days, 2-3 weeks later, they're done. It's like, fuck this, I'm out of here. I'm not getting the views. I'm not getting any of this shit that I want, right? But that's not what you really want, right? You don't want the views, right? You want, like you said last time, you're chasing the feelings of those views, right? And so which is really interesting. Like you're chasing the feeling, which is like
it's so odd to think about because there's like when you really think about it, you really think about it, if what you're after is a feeling, there's so many ways to get that feeling. And you're doing some ridiculous ass shit to try and get some feeling of, oh, I'm unique and special, right? So I'm gonna spend $500 on a pair of sneakers and then post them on Instagram or whatever the fuck you're doing to feel significant. There's so many ways to feel significant. You don't have to do that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And not for nothing. Like I've been there. Like I know what it's like to try and feel significant through something you're wearing or being on a particular team or buying a particular pair of soccer cleats or whatever the fuck you're doing, versus like for me, the highest level of significance I've ever felt was, I don't even remember what morning it was. I remember it was a cold ass morning in the winter and it was like 4 in the morning when I woke up, and it was like I was deep into the habit of waking up early. Like it was like probably months into it. And I had thought about it, I'm like, nobody else is doing this shit. Like no one, especially on my age, wasn't doing that shit at like 18, 19 years old. I knew that. Like no one like had the discipline to do that and wake up early so that I can get to the gym an hour away and work out with my trainer for an hour and then shower and get to class by like 7:30, and then from class like grind all my shit and then go to work at night. But the only time I had to get up and meet my trainer was 4:00 in the morning. I knew nobody else was doing that, and that's what made me feel super significant. But I didn't have to post that shit. I wasn't Snapchatting people like a picture of the clock. Oh, it's 4 in the morning. By the way, I'm up earlier than you are. I'm up earlier than most people right now. Like I just felt it, and when you feel it, you don't have the need to show it.
And people will point that out about you, like that characteristic. Like, I mean, it's not blowing smoke up my own ass, but like people point out like how consistent I am, like how hardworking I am. And like when they say it, like, I mean, like it's nice that they recognize it, but like I've said this before on this podcast, like I don't really care. Like it's like, but when someone says something negative to me, like that affects me way more. Like if someone was like, yeah, that was a really good video. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Like deep down inside, it's like, okay, yeah, thank you. You tell me what I like already know, like kind of something like that. But when someone's like, dude, that shit was dog shit. I'm like someone came into work today and they were like, wow, Cal, I'm the only person that liked your podcast. I'm like, all right, it is what it is.
You're like, that's fine, honestly. Like, I don't even care whatever happened.
I'm gonna go.
No, it's fine. Like, I wanted one like, and I was gonna like delete it and stuff. Anyways, so.
But like you said, man, it's like people. If you're developing those habits and behaviors and those things, right? You know what you are, right? Like if you're waking up every day at 4 in the morning, right? You don't have to post it on your Instagram story to feel significant, right? Like what is the point of posting it on your Snapchat story if your goal is just to say, okay, guys, here's like this is me. And I think it's okay to like note it here and there, but if you're like, oh, yep, up at 4:30 in the morning, right? But
again, it's why. Because immediately what made me think about is, I don't know if you've heard of the guy Jocko Willing.
Yep.
He's a Navy SEAL. He posts every single day on his Instagram. Every single day. I don't know if he still does it, but I know for the longest time,
probably. He
posts a picture of his watch at 4:30 in the morning every single time he wakes up. Yeah. But again, I don't know Jocko, so maybe it's not coming from a good place. But my guess is it is, right? So the reason why he's posting it is not because he wants you to know that he's up at 4:30 in the morning. The reason why he's posting it is because he wants you to know that it's possible. Yeah. He wants you to. The post is there to serve you It's there to inspire you. It's there to remind you that you can be better. You can be doing more, right? Because Jocko maybe was at a point where like he wasn't doing that or whatever, right? But the point is like the reason why he's posting it is not because he wants you to know he's up at 4:30 in the morning. The reason he's posting it is for you, not for himself.
Yep.
With that said, most people use that as an excuse of like, no, I'm not posting it for me. I'm not posting it for me. Same thing with girls. I'm not wearing makeup for myself. I mean, I'm not wearing makeup for you. I'm wearing it for me. I'm like, okay, do you wear makeup around the house for yourself? No? All right. So then who is it for? Do you know what I mean? It's like, yes, there are some girls who will do that. Yes, and I get it. But what I'm saying is whatever you're doing, if you want to feel better, you need to analyze why you're saying the things you're saying and why you're doing the things that you're doing. Because if you feel the need to post it on Snapchat that you're waking up early, then you're doing it for ego, right? Unless your reason is to serve others.
Yeah, and I think it's tough too because like if people like if you're like Jocko, right, and he's doing it to show that it's possible, right, as opposed to someone that posts it on their like just like a normal individual that posts it on their story, I think a lot of people will look at that and they'll get the interpretation similar to me of like, oh, he's just doing it out of ego, you know, he's not doing it based on you know, doing it for others, you know, to serve others. And I think that's kind of like a gray area that's kind of tough. But yeah. I think as long as you know that, like, despite what other people think, right? Like, if you know you're doing it from a place of authenticity, right? And you're doing it from a place that's not necessarily based in ego, based on boosting yourself up over others, I think that's a lot better than, obviously doing it for ego. Doing things for attention, like doing things to be seen, right? Like the only person that needs to see things is you, right? Like you have to be the one that sees what's going on, right? Like you're able, I mean, obviously sometimes people got to point it out to you because some people are just downright oblivious, right? But if you just have to evaluate your situation, right? Don't worry about feeling significant because that feeling significant is a false pursuit in itself, right? Like the real
it's a byproduct.
Exactly. Like, and that's the biggest thing, right? Like don't, like, yeah, you know all the achievements that you have, right? You've gone, like, but it's not about the achievements, right? It's not about, like, people knowing it. It's about you living in alignment with your authentic self, like you living in alignment with your purpose, right? And it's okay to advocate, like, your achievements, right? It's okay to say what you've done, right? To develop, like, if someone's, like, trying to disrespect you and, like, you're just like, oh, no, I've actually done X, Y, and Z. And they're just like, oh, okay. You know, there's a time and place for all that. But I think if, like, once again, if you're doing it from a place of authenticity, it will be a lot better because you're not constantly trying to feel significant rather than just not.
And you could feel it. Like you could feel it when you're talking to someone.
100%.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's not always a cookie cutter black and white sort of thing where it's like, if you say this, then I know it's coming from ego, right? Like if I say that I do social media, that's coming from ego, right? It might be coming from ego, but the way you'll know is by the way I'm saying it and the situation and how it's rolling out, right? It's not necessarily the words on a page. You know what I mean? So again, the thing to pay attention to is how does it make you feel when somebody else is saying it? Yeah. How does it make you feel when you're saying it? Because you know when somebody's blowing smoke up their own ass. You know it. Right? But somebody else can say the same exact words, but it just sounds differently and feels differently because it's coming from a different place. So it's not necessarily something that's tangible.
Yeah. And I think, too, something I struggle with a lot is, like, I don't like talking about myself. Like, I really, really, really don't. Like when someone asks me, like, what I do, because I feel bad when I say shit because I'm like, I don't want them to get the interpretation that I'm trying to blow smoke up my ass, right? Like, and some people will literally blow smoke up their own ass and not give a fuck, right? Like, and that's based out of ego. Like, I just do not like talking about myself. And, like, I'm sure a lot of people could relate to that too. Maybe you too, you know?
Which is weird because, like, growing up, it was okay. I love the spotlight. I love it. Yeah. Like, I love being the center of attention. I love being in big crowds. Who doesn't? Yeah. Well, some people don't. You know what I mean? Yeah. Some people actually don't, and I get that. But, like, Sorry.
Shut that shit off.
I I am shutting this shit off. Okay, I'm sorry.
Shut you off.
I'm gonna do not disturb. Okay. I love the spotlight, right? It's just my personality. I love being in big crowds. I love being in the middle of the circle. I love it. I love all the attention. It feels nice. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
But there a lot of times that seeps over into the ego expressing itself in all these kinds of ways. And it did for me. Like growing up, I was always the kid that tried to fluff up my own life so I seemed better than I actually was. Like I seemed like I was a better soccer player than I actually was. Like I seemed like I got more bitches than I actually did. Like I seemed like I was in better shape than I actually was. Like all these things. But then eventually I got to the point where I worked on it so hard and I beat that shit so hard into the ground to now, anytime I'm saying anything that would even remotely come across as or give me a feeling of significance, I immediately am like, I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. And that's why I feel so awkward when people bring up like the whole TikTok thing around like people I don't know yet. And like, but just shit like that. It's like, if you start actually working on that kind of stuff, you will get to the point where like, you'll feel the way that you feel. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think it's because naturally for somebody like you, this is just a hypothesis, but for you, you grew up, whether it's nature or nurture, the way you were parented, whatever, you kind of just, your ego never got out of control. Like you were never the type of kid, I'm assuming, that fluffed up his life, that try and make himself, of course, maybe sometimes.
No, I'm just like, no, I'm thinking. I'm not like,
but like meeting you as you are now, like based on the stories you told me of you growing up or whatever, it doesn't seem like you ever grew up in a mental state where you would always try and seem better than you actually were. Yeah. Like somebody like me would growing up, like try and fluff up your life, right? So that's your natural state.
Yeah.
And now I've not necessarily achieved, but I've gotten to the point where you and I are on a very similar playing field of like, we don't like that kind of feeling, but that's a good thing, right?
It's a good thing, yeah.
In the same sense where maybe you can work towards the good thing of just whenever there's an obstacle in your way where there involves a person, right? So like getting this radio station room, right? My immediate reaction, just through the way I was raised or whatever, like it wasn't even, I didn't even think twice about like, oh, just go ask them, right? So maybe for you, you're like, oh yeah, I don't want to ask, right? But it's no judgment, but those are like, I'm just two examples of like how we grew up differently. Of
course.
But I think, what the fuck was I even talking about? I don't know. But
like how you would just come into the radio room and you'd be like,
no, I know. I don't even know what the whole point of this whole riff was. Like starting off with like saying like the ego.
Pretty much like how nature or nurture, right? Like how we're raised.
I think I just wanted to make the point of like, I think I was just literally giving an example of how I started on the complete opposite end of the spectrum.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But it's a lot harder for somebody like me to do that, to get myself to the point where I'm feeling icky about saying anything that makes me feel significant, just like how somebody like on your end of the spectrum might feel icky about asking to use the podcast room.
Yeah. And I think that's very interesting too, because like I've always feel, and this is like a big part of my life, like I always feel in a state of insignificance, right? Like not always, but like for a significant portion, see what I did there? For a significant portion of my life, like currently too, like it's just like a natural thing. Like, and I'm very like conscious of it. I know how to respond to it, you know. So it's not like a huge thing that makes me feel super inferior. But like very interestingly, we feel insignificant, right? But when the significance is pointed out to us and it's given to us, we don't want it. Right? It's like when it's like a weird paradox.
Well,
thing.
I wouldn't necessarily. Well, at least for me, the way I think about it is like not necessarily. I don't want it. I don't need it.
Gotcha.
It's a nice.
I should have said that. That's in my own case. That's what I meant. Like that's not. I wasn't trying to like generalize there, but like I think.
Well, do you not want the attention or do you not want the significance? Do you not like the spotlight or do you not like the recognition?
I don't think I like. Because it's weird. I do and I don't. You know, like I do want people to recognize like the work that I'm doing. But I think it's when other people like say it, right? Rather than me saying it myself, right? Like
well, because this is just based on what I'm hearing. It seems like I don't think I could be wrong. It just doesn't seem like you're the type of person that enjoys the spotlight, like just extrovert, introvert sort of deal. But I'm assuming you like the recognition, right? It just feels good to be like, damn cow, you work your ass off.
Exactly.
Like,
So
you know what I mean?
I think I do enjoy the spotlight, right? Like being up on a stage talking to a crowd, like that shit's fucking lit.
Is it actually?
Oh, dude, I love that type of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, that shit's awesome. But it's more so just like, propping myself up. Like that's what I don't like. Like when it comes up in a situation where I'm telling people like, oh, I do YouTube, I do this. Like this is like the last thing I'd bring up with people, right?
Yeah.
Not because I'm not passionate about it, but because I don't think it's this is kind of going on a little different area too, but also it's a good segue that when you're talking about the things that you do that aren't very acceptable, right? Like if I bring this up in a conversation, like, yeah, I have my own podcast. People are like, what?
It sets a weird stage, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like,
doesn't it?
people are like, you have your own podcast?
Because have
What?
you ever been in a situation where, like, just the way maybe somebody introduced you or however it played out, that the first thing that somebody learned about you is that you do a podcast on self-improvement?
Yeah.
And it's just like, it just sets the stage so fucking weird.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, for me, the way it comes up, like this happened numerous times with, like at work where like I'll meet a new coworker and this happened. So I met a new coworker.
A podcaster.
Well, I didn't say it, but I was talking with one of my other coworkers that I've known for a while, and he was like, "This is Jason. He's TikTok famous," and I'm like, "Fuck you." Like, this is just weird now. Because, first of all, I'm not famous.
Yeah.
Second of all, now this kid, he's like, whoa, what do you do on TikTok? Whatever. And then we start talking about mental health, self-improvement, mindset, that sort of deal. And so, like, he's like, let me show me a couple of videos. I showed him, like, the kind of stuff I'm looking at. And now for the rest of the week, this fucker is just acting like his life is better than it actually is. He's not, like, super ego, like, oh, I fuck bitches or whatever. It's more like, oh, like, I'm trying to start working out and stuff lately, And I'm like, dude, just be real.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Just be real. But that interaction just set the stage for just such weird, like, you know what I'm saying? Rather than if it was somebody like my friend Alex, who I grew up with my whole life, and now I'm doing TikTok, it's not going to be like, oh, well, Jay, I've been trying to work out recently, actually. And I've also been reading a lot, and I'm really into self-improvement and making my bed in the morning. I'm like, he doesn't do that, you know what I mean? Because he knew me beforehand. Yep. And in the same sense, when I meet people, they know a different side of me beforehand, so long as they don't know about, like, the TikTok and the fucking social media. You know what I mean?
Like when they see someone that's more significant than them, they try and conform themselves to like what they are.
Right,
you know what I mean? So they selectively and exaggerate those characteristics within them to kind of, I guess, feel significant, feel a part of that conversation when it's not true, right? So like they selectively choose traits, right? And then they exaggerate those traits. So maybe in that case, like the waiter, like your coworker example, right? They selectively, like, they weren't reading, they weren't making their bed, they weren't doing X, Y, and Z, right? So they'll be like, oh yeah, I've been doing this, right? But they're not actually doing it, right? Maybe they
wouldn't say it if they were doing it.
Yeah. It's like, dude, I looked outside the window today. Like,
that's fucking dope, man. Really? That's crazy.
Wow, dude.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, but
you know what I made me think of? Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah,
but I think you can just finish the podcast.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Because the thing I talk about, I drill this into people's brains. It's like, who you hang around is who you become, right? Yep. That sort of deal. And immediately it makes me think about, because you were talking about how, in that sense, I'm more significant than somebody else. So then they're going to try and fluff themselves up to be more significant because I'm more significant, right? So my level of significance is here, theirs is here. So then they'll do
according
whatever.
to them.
Right, it's very subjective. Agreed. Completely agreed.
According to them. Yeah.
Right. So I'm here, they're here, subjectively to them. So then they'll do whatever it takes to get to here.
Yeah.
But now that we think about it this way, is like, that applies with everything. I'm trying to think about like what the law of the universe could be for that. I would say law of influence. That's the best answer I got. Because like a good example, like if somebody's going out to eat with somebody who eats very healthy, right? But like, so like, let's say you eat super healthy and I eat terribly, and then we go out to eat, and you don't say you should order a salad. You just order whatever it is that you're ordering because you eat healthy. I was going to get the burger and fries, but then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to eat this.
Yeah.
I'm going to eat something healthier instead.
I think so. What came to my mind immediately is they're afraid of the judgment, right? They know what they should be doing, right? So take the example of eating healthy. They know they should be eating healthy, right?
Yeah.
And then they see their friend order something healthy, right? And that friend is just ordering what they normally order. They're not even thinking about it, right? But on the other end, they're like, oh shit, if I order something unhealthy, he might judge me, right? Like, you know what you should be doing, and then when you deviate from, I guess, what that person more significant than you is doing, right? Then you feel like you're going to be judged. You
I
feel like
agree.
you're going to be
Yeah.
less than. And that's something us naturally as human beings
Right.
don't like.
Yeah, I see the gray area in that
Yeah, no,
as
for
well,
sure,
though,
for sure.
because like I think there's that aspect of it, and I think in the other aspect, because like immediately what it made me think about is like when you and I go and grab dinner,
Yep.
right? Like a lot of times, I mean, we're different because like I'm pretty healthy, and
Yep.
like my standards for myself are set to like where I want them to be. So like
yeah.
if whatever, right? So like whenever you're a vegan, so like whatever you order is always
Close to vegan.
what you order is usually very healthy, is good for your body. It's like that's just always what you're getting. But it's like if I were to
If you were to get like dessert or something unhealthy, or
yeah, well, I don't even think that essentially what I was trying to get at is that there's two parts of it where it's like you can feel you're gonna change your behavior because you don't want to feel the judgment from that person, or you're gonna change your behavior because you don't want to feel the judgment for yourself. Because when you're hanging around people who have higher standards for their lives than you do in any area of life, what they can be doing is setting an example for you rather than casting judgment on you. Yes, they can. That can be an aspect of it. But I think for me, a lot of times what it comes down to is somebody's setting the bar high for themselves, and it serves as a reminder of where your standards can and should be. And when you're reminded of the standard for yourself, not Cal's standard or anybody else's standard, but my own standard for me, when I'm reminded of that, then it puts me in a mental state of, I'm going to be better. I'm going to do more. I'm going to be healthier. I'm going to do whatever it takes to meet that standard that I have for
really good.
myself, right? So it's not necessarily that you order a salad, so I'm going to order a salad. It's going to be you order a salad, so now I'm going to do whatever I need to do to meet my standard for my physical health because you're doing whatever you need to do to meet your standard for your physical health.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. I think that's really good because sometimes people would order a salad because they're afraid of that judgment, right? But if you can change that response into a proactive one, right, and you like you said, you use it as an example and you check that recognition of your own standards, right? Then you can use it as a good thing, right? And you change the reasons why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that is so big too. And I think that's something like a lot of people write that down, people. All right?
Yeah, well, because immediately what it makes me think about is like whenever I hang out with most people that like not that I like acquaintances rather, not like good friends, but whenever I hang out with a lot of people, they don't enjoy being put in situations with me where any of the areas of life that are important are involved, right? So if we go out to eat, they don't really like it because a lot of times I'm going to be ordering something healthy and then they feel shitty. Right? But it's not because I'm saying you should order a salad. It's because I'm serving as a reminder to them of what they're capable of.
Yeah.
I'm serving as a reminder of them of where they could be.
Yep.
Not you should order a Caesar salad because I'm ordering a Caesar salad. It's I'm ordering a salad because I'm holding myself to a higher standard for myself.
Yep.
And I'm not telling you what you should order. If you're ordering a burger and fries, order a burger and fries. But they don't like hanging out with me because they feel shitty because they are reminded of their own standards that they could have them for themselves. It's not that granted, some people are like that. I'm like, you should order a fucking salad, fat ass. Like, I'm not doing that, but like that could happen. But what I'm saying is like people don't enjoy hanging around people who have high standards for themselves because it reminds them of where their standards, or it reminds them of where they are in comparison to their standards.
Yeah, it's pushing them to be better, right? It's pushing them outside their comfort zone, and no one likes to be outside their comfort zone. Fuck that. I want to stay on my couch, like just chilling, editing a video, right?
Yeah.
But when I see someone like a new like editing type of thing, right? That's like, I was like, oh wow, dude, I really could make this look cool right now, or I could just cut it and like just like make it look real like but the possibility, right? You know how good it could be, right? But like you said, people are afraid to get outside their comfort zone, afraid to be pushed, right? And so take for example, like when I'm lifting with a friend who's bigger than me, right? Like I don't necessarily offer advice in those situations, right? I'm more so listening, right? I'm taking advice from him, right? And this is not to say that he knows more now. He knows more than me, right? But if he's stronger than me, right? Take that, and for instance, like instead of being the teacher, I become the student, right? And with that, like I'm the one asking questions. I'm the one who's willing to learn. But I think also on the flip side of that, right? Like if you're in that type of situation and you're both kind of, you've agreed to those roles, right? Like, oh, I'm going to mentor this guy. I'm going to, I'm going to listen to this guy, right? I think that's okay. But also at the same time too, you got to be careful with, if you're the teacher and just becoming completely closed-minded, right? Just being like, oh, no, I know everything. I know this. No, you might be able to learn a lot from this guy.
I fall into that trap a lot.
Yeah, and it's like you got to be really careful of being like, no, I've got life figured out.
Ego. Yeah, and the way Jordan Peterson puts it is just like, it doesn't matter who you're in an interaction with. If you enter the interaction thinking that you know everything and everything that they're going to tell you is stupid, you're going to be more stupid as a result of that, right? So let's say go into a conversation with somebody who doesn't work on self-improvement at all. And so then we're talking about something of like a certain area of life. Let's say we're talking about intimate relationships, and I'm talking to someone who has a shitty relationship. And so since I know, and I probably do know more things and more about how to have a good relationship than they do, I'm not going to listen to a single word that they're saying. I'm going to be way more stupid as a result of that. Because even if 49 out of 50 things or 99 out of 100 things that they're saying are dispensable or things that I already knew or things that are wrong for me to even take out of that or extract out of that conversation, there's one thing that I could be taking from that conversation that I'm not taking, and I will be worse off as a result of that because I went into the conversation assuming that everything that they're going to say is completely dispensable. But you're going to be dumber as a result of that.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I think it's also important, too, to get that information out of others, right? It's important for you, I guess, as the teacher, as like the more significant individual, right? So take weightlifting, for example. Like you've been in weightlifting for X amount of years and this person's been in weightlifting for like less amount of years, right? Say to that person, dude, if you want to like say, like offer up a perspective, right, that you think I might disagree with, please say it. Please say it. Don't be afraid to, because I know in my own experience, I am like, dude, I almost never offer up advice when it comes to, or not advice, just like a counter perspective, right? And offering what I truly think, right? Because I don't, why is that? Why don't I do that? Like,
I think it comes from a place of ego where you want to be liked from everybody.
Probably. That's probably on the money. And I think it's, like I don't want to take that person off.
Because I think you'd be a great teacher. Because I think what makes a great teacher is they were a great listener.
Yep.
And they are a great listener. So the best teachers are the best learners, right? So they know the most. That's why they could teach the most, the best, right? And so I think that applies to you in very various areas of life. But I think that your desire, again, we touched on this a couple podcasts ago, but your desire to want to be liked from everybody, which comes from ego, is holding you back from offering your words of wisdom to people who actually would benefit from it.
Yeah. And I don't think it's necessarily I want to be liked by everyone. I think it's like, and this might be a byproduct of that, but I don't want to piss anybody off. And that might be in itself not like I want to be liked by everybody, but I don't consciously feel that like, oh, I need to be liked by this person. Like I don't feel that need, but I mean, that's besides the point.
You don't like the conflict.
Yeah, I don't like the conflict very much so. Yeah, and I want to avoid it at all costs, right? And I guess in that instance, a byproduct of that is being liked by everybody. And I think it's very important, whether you're an individual watching this or whether you're like just having a conversation with one of your friends, just make the other person you're with or group you're with to feel comfortable pointing out things, because I know I've been in conversations with others where once I've said that they began to offer up so many perspectives, like proactively seek out those, like ask those questions, right?
Well, I mean, the thing for me that I think we've even talked about this is like, you got to think about it this way: is like, just because you're not feeling the discomfort in this moment, you're trading off long-term suffering for that other person.
Yeah, definitely.
But then imagine you thinking about that in 5 years, right? Imagine you not telling me something that you should tell me that would completely change my life now because you didn't want to feel the conflict in that moment.
Yeah.
How you would feel 5 years from now if you got to see a hypothetical potential version of me that was way better.
Yeah.
How would you feel? Fucking awful. And you'd have to live with that, right? Because you traded off a lifetime of suffering because you knew that there was lost potential that you left on the table versus 5 seconds of discomfort. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, dude. Literally, this happened not even like 2 hours ago. Like, but I overcame it. Yeah. It was with the meditation certification. So my boss was in his office, right?
Yeah.
And I was like getting packed up to go, and I was like fucking sweating. Not like literally, but like in my body, I was like sweating up a storm. I'm like, oh God,
You gotta say it.
I was getting nervous. I was like, oh man, I don't want to say this. But I was like, took a deep breath, went into his office. It was like, looked like a nervous wreck, I bet. But I was like, hey, like, is there any chance, like, I have a passion for meditation. Is there any chance, like, I'd be able to, possibly, teach some classes, get a certification? He's like, yeah, dude, we could totally talk about it. I'm like, bet. And it was just like, I knew what I could be, right? Like, but imagine for a lot of people, and we've both been in this type of situation where they trade off that, they fall into the trap of going with that short-term discomfort, right? And they stay in that state rather than overcoming it, and going like just overcoming the nervousness, right? Because you got to remember that goal, what you could be in the end.
But you're always trading off short-term for long-term.
Yeah.
You're always, with everything, whether you're doing or not doing, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If short-term, you're trading off the temporary discomfort of going to the gym, you're trading off for the long-term diabetes or long-term cancer or obesity or whatever the fuck, right? Or insecurity. Like, the array of fucking bullshit. Or you're trading off the short-term pain of going to the gym for the long-term feelings of health and wellness.
Yeah.
But either way, you're trading. And either way, there's shit here and there's shit here. Or there's shit here and there's shit here.
Yeah.
Pick your fucking path. Pick it. It's your choice.
Yeah, everything's in the short term, but you have to think about the long-term consequences of those things, right? Because like you said, we're always trading off the short term for the long term, right? And like, it's up to you. It's your choice, right? Like, you can... I mean, if you want to sit on your couch, eat, whatever, high-calorie dense potato chips
and Cheetos,
and get diabetes in like 10, 20 years, up to you, it ruins your life. But that's also up to your ultimate goals. If you want to live a short life, obese, by all means. But
none of those people are listening to this fucking podcast.
You don't know that. No.
We can have some inspired people in here.
I'll get my researchers on it.
Okay.
We'll see. But yeah, anything else you wanted to say, my man?
I think you wrap this bad boy up.
Wrap her up. All right, guys. So we are going to wrap up the 39th episode of the Conscious Cast. And I think we talked about a lot today. We got into a good groove there at the end.
We got into a good
Yeah, we got to get a good. It started off, it was like a little bit, but we got into a good groove, which I'm happy about. What was that?
What I do?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
But anyways, guys, make sure you follow, like, comment, and subscribe to the Conscious Cast. Where can they find you, my babe?
At Jason Scalora, at Jason Scalora, JASONSCALORA on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, and the Jason Scalora Show on YouTube and Spotify.
Yes, sir. It will be linked down below in the description. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are clocking out.
Stay handsome.
Love yourself because I love you. And we're out, baby.
Peace.